Hello, everyone, and welcome so much. Cut. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of our Digital Parenting Club webinar. The masterclass today is going to be about understanding the risks of online sexual abuse. It's a very important topic, and I'm really glad we're talking about some of these issues much more. It's unfortunate sometimes that these issues come up when something happens that makes it to the media, makes it to the public stage, as such as some of the recent cases that have happened. But it's important that the conversations continue. And with Lagos Moms, we've been consistent with a lot of these messages. We've been talking about this for quite a while. We've been talking about the importance of raising our children in the digital age and being more intentional and more more focused on ensuring that our children get the skills they need to navigate this world that they're in. Not what we wish, not what we hope, not what we used to experience as children, but really about ensuring that our children are learning. They're learning, it's sticking, and they're not making the mistakes that, we would regret later. So anyway, today's topic is going to be around understanding the risk of online sexual abuse. And in case this is your first time joining this masterclass, my name is Yetty Williams. I'm the founder and CEO of Lagos Moms, a family and parenting resource for moms, dads, and caregivers raising children in the 21st century to be responsible digital citizens. So this month, April, we're talking about this topic. So let's get ready, take your notes, and we'll get into Q&A afterwards as well. So what is online sexual content? There are two main facets to online sexual content, and one of it is self-generated, and the second one is coercion. So let me explain the two different ones. Self-generated content is actually sexual content that children are creating themselves. They're generating it themselves. They are the ones taking pictures of themselves, either nudes, semi-dressed or half naked, pictures that are inappropriate and of a sexual nature. They are taking it themselves. They are choosing to take those pictures and they are sharing it between themselves, their friends, for popularity, for whatever series of reasons. They are creating it themselves. The second type of online sexual content in terms of children's material, sexually explicit content that's online, comes from coercion. And coercion comes from where a child is made to share those photos or made to share those videos. Some of it is coming because they are a victim of grooming, where somebody online as an adult, for example, has identified that this is a child that's vulnerable, and they are coercing them and forcing them to share content they shouldn't be sharing. And sometimes the children are even being coerced by their age mates, right? So these are roughly the two types. The one that the child is generating on their own because they want to, it's still a form of abuse, because there's no young child that should want to do that if everything else around them has actually been properly dealt with. Does that make sense? So a child who's sharing naked pictures of themselves, something somewhere has gone wrong. Either they've been a victim of abuse, something has happened. We don't really quite know, and we'll get into some more of that, so that we come from a place of questioning and saying that we can't say that, oh, the parent has done everything they can do. There's no reason a 10, 12, 13-year-old should be doing that. There's something going on somewhere. And it's important that as parents, as caregivers, we're able to identify some of the steps, some of the triggers and red flags that make certain children take certain kinds of actions and others will not. Coercion is very clear. That's a child who's a victim of somebody somewhere who's bullying them, forcing them online to share content they shouldn't. Now, it's interesting to know that based on research, between ages 14 to 17 years old, they found out that 26% of them have sent a nude or sexual image to someone they are interested in. So sometimes they're doing it because they like someone and they think this is a way to get that person to like them back. So 26% roughly have said that that's the reason why they sent in a nude or a sexual image. 48% said they've received one from someone else, right? So 48% have said that they've received sexual image or nude from someone else that has been sent to them. All right. Now, okay, here we go. I want to talk about this as well, that in terms of online sexual content, that in 2020, IWF, this is one of the foundations that does a lot of work around, digital age, children in the 21st century, digital behaviors. They found out that 77%, there's been a 77% increase in the amount of self-generated abuse material. And this is because children and criminals are spending longer online. They're spending more time online. So there's been a 77% increase in the amount of self-generated abuse material being shared. Now, if you think about it, during the pandemic, for example, everybody was online. Children were online more. So the same cyber criminals that were trying to protect our children from were also online more. So what that meant was there were more people online. And as a result, there was an increase, as you can imagine, of abuse. And that included self-generated material. They also found that in 80% of those cases, the victims were 11 to 13-year-old girls. So for some reason, girls between that 11 to 13-year-old are very susceptible to sharing self-created sexual images online. The question is why? Usually at 11 to 13, these are twins, they're pre-puberty or pre-teenage years, they're still trying to get through body image, self-esteem. They're quite vulnerable at those young ages. And many of them that got online during the pandemic did not necessarily get the education they needed. They were kind of forced to go online because when everybody was at home, they were online. And what has happened is because more children are online, there's more room for abuse, but parents are not necessarily having the corresponding conversations with their children to ensure that they are not victims of inappropriate content online. Now, Internet Matters reported that of the 13 to 17-year-old survey respondents who shared their nudes, 70% had their image shared without their consent. So that means a child could have shared self-generated content online that they shouldn't have. But they found out that 17% of them had their image shared without their consent. And what that means is maybe it's a 12-year-old sends a picture to somebody, a friend, somebody she likes, maybe for truth and dare, whatever it is. A certain percentage of those children, the person they send the picture to, that person takes it and shares it without the consent of the person that sent it to them. Obviously, we need to help children understand that, when you share something, you lose control of that content. So you send something to somebody, you think, oh, that person is not going to share it. That person is going to delete it once they see it. Or, oh, once they see it on Snapchat, it disappears. What if they don't? What if they don't delete it? What if they take a screenshot? What if they pass it on? So the children have to know that whatever you send online, once it's out of your control, you don't control what happens to it. So 17% found out that that image they shared was shared to somebody else without their consent. 14% were bullied or harassed because of their pictures or videos. So they created this content, they shared it online, and then what they are finding is that they were then harassed, or bullied because they've now shared it. Somebody somewhere is now bullying them because of what they shared. Another 14% shared that they were pressured or threatened to send more image. So the truth is that a lot is happening, and a child makes the mistake of sharing content they shouldn't, right? So what happens after they share it? Typically, it doesn't end there. And that's why we're talking about this, because it's important to get our children before they share the content. But we also want to keep in mind that should they have shared information or content about themselves that they shouldn't have, including, unfortunately, nudes, what do you then do? All right. Now, I want to talk about the motivations for children. We don't know why. There are several reasons, but these are just some of the reasons that we found that are quite prevalent. Why young people might send a nude image or video. Variety of reasons. Some share with somebody they think is their boyfriend or girlfriend. They think they're in a relationship, and this is the way to show that you like somebody. Some of them, they're flirting with somebody they're interested in. Some just think they're having fun. Like, unfortunately, in the case of Quizland, they were playing truth and dare, and somebody decided to record it. They were all, quote unquote, having fun. Inappropriate fun, but they thought they were just having fun. Some, because they're confident in their body, they want to show it. They actually want to show it. And that's why some of them actually then do that. Some of them are looking for reassurance about body image. Some of them want reassurance is why they're sharing these inappropriate photos online. Some are pressured by a friend or a partner. And lastly, some are sharing someone else's nude in revenge. So unfortunately, this is where the realm of revenge porn comes in. And somebody is sharing a nude of somebody else because they broke up, they're no more friends, they annoyed them. Sometimes that's the motivation why these pictures are being shared. Now I want to talk about sexting. And sexting is actually another phrase for sharing nudes. It's also important that you use the right language, because for some children, they don't know what sexting is, but you talk about sending nudes and they know what you're talking about. So we'll talk about 5 facts about sexting. First of all, is that images sent on sites like Snapchat can still be saved and screenshotted. So you want to let your children know that whatever you share, don't think that some platform is safe. Don't think that because Snapchat says once it's viewed one time, that is it. People can save it. People can still screenshot it in that moment when they are watching. I was even doing some research. Looking at the video, I did some research recently that said there are some hacks that some people have figured out in terms of how they can actually save a photo that's shared on Snapchat without the person who shared it knowing that the other person on the other side has saved the photo. So you are there thinking, oh, I shared that, but it's only them that saw it. And once they view the picture, it's gone. Actually, no. Somebody who has other ulterior motives knows exactly what they need to do to save that photo, and you won't know. It's not okay for someone to pressure you into sending a nude. So it's important that children learn to be empowered, learn to know how to say no, and learn to push back when they're being pressured into doing something that's inappropriate. Now, you need to also let children know that it is illegal and it is against the law to send or receive a nude photo of somebody who's under 18. That's for the person who's under 18 sharing it, and for the person under 18 who's receiving it. It is illegal and against the law. And if they are caught, their accounts can be flagged and they can get into serious problem with the law. So children need to know that it is illegal. So it's not just saying don't do it because it's bad and your body is, your body is yours, your body is a temple, you don't share private parts, you don't share things like that publicly with anybody. But they should also know that there's a law and there's a legal ramification around it. And guess what? Your teenager is not too young to understand the implications of going against the law. Now, let them know also that not everybody in a relationship will share nudes. So no, they shouldn't think that that's the normal thing, because that's the other thing. When children normalize something, that's what everybody's doing. You always want to catch them and let them know that no, not everybody does that. Don't let a few people who do a certain thing make you think that everybody does it. Unless you can be 100% sure that everybody does it, you cannot say those kind of blanket comments that says everybody does it. What's the big deal? It is a big deal. And then lastly, you want to let children know that if something does go wrong, there's always support. Because for the children who think that they've made such a huge mistake, they shared something they shouldn't share, or they're even embarrassed because somebody has shared photos about them that they thought was only for somebody's set of eyes and it's gone further, let them know that there's always help. There's always something they can do. And it's important children today understand the place of hope and the place of help and the place of coming back from a wrong decision. Because it's when they don't know that some of them then spiral into depression, suicide ideation, because they feel like they've so messed up that they just want to end it all. And there's a lot of support a child can get. So if you want to just remember these 5 things about sexual images, online sexual abuse, because anything where you're sending inappropriate photos, videos, you've seen it, you've shared it online, is a form of sexual abuse, online sexual abuse. So you want to keep these 5 facts in the back of your mind. You want to let your children know that anything they share online can be saved, can be screenshotted, even in Snapchat or all these anonymous apps that suggest that once you share something, it disappears. Let them know that that's not always the case. In fact, when I spoke to some teenagers in a secondary school some years ago, I showed them an article that said someone had hacked the Snapchat cloud. They hacked it. So all the pictures that you thought disappeared, they're actually going somewhere in the cloud of that platform. And if you're using a platform for free, guess what? You are the product. So you cannot be sure that what you share, nobody is seeing it. You also want them to know, let's just go over it again, let them know that nobody should pressure them into sending anything inappropriate. Let them know that it's against the law to share something that's inappropriate of sexual nature. Let them know that not everybody in a relationship does it. And lastly, let them know that if something does go wrong and they do what they shouldn't, there's always help. So you want to let them know that you have open lines of communication. Share your requirements and laws and values, expectations with them about being a responsible digital citizen. But you always want to leave that room so that they know if something goes wrong, they can come to you for help. One of the saddest things I've heard recently is a child who had shared something online that she shouldn't have. She was getting bullied, and because she felt that her mom and dad would have no clue what to do, she didn't bother telling them. So she suffered for a much longer process and period than she should have, than if she had told her parents. So it's okay not to have the answer, but you always have to show them that you're willing to learn, you're open, and you help them to find a solution. But if they think there's no way you're going to get it, there's no way you can help them, you're just going to shout and you're not going to solve anything, they're not going to tell you. All right. Now, in terms of what sexting is, it can actually be a couple of things because children can say, "Ah, but it wasn't so bad." Now, I want you to know exactly what it entails. It's being partly or completely naked or in your underwear. That's considered sexual imagery. It's posing in a sexual nature. It is sending nudes, yes, of any body part. It's talking about sexual things you want to be done or do to you or to someone else. And it's doing sexual things on a live stream. So children need to understand all of this because they are growing up in a digital world. They are growing up digitally and they're seeing these things happen digitally. And some people somewhere are letting them know that it's not a big deal. Everybody does it. So unless you're able to use this language and let your children know that, hello, these are the things that is considered, inappropriate, have those conversations with them so they know. So the minute they're asked to do it, something will ring in the back of their mind like, oh, no, 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 no. Right? So that's why we're talking about this. Wait. Now, in terms of the effects of online sexual abuse, it's important to talk about that. I'm going to give you just a few seconds to read this. So according to research, it tells us that the effects of online sexual abuse include this: self-blame, flashbacks or intrusive thoughts, depression and low self-esteem, nightmares and trouble sleeping, anxiety and panic attacks, self harm, and problems at school, such as difficulty keeping up with work or behavioral problems. So, there's a lot of effects of online sexual abuse. And it's important we keep it in mind that because somebody is not physically abused or sexually abused, doesn't mean that this effect cannot affect them when this sexual abuse happens online. And sexual abuse online covers so many things. Like we said, is sharing inappropriate content, is seeing inappropriate content, it's coming across it, it's feeding on it, is watching it. Anything that's of a sexual nature that the child sees online is considered a form of online sexual abuse, right? Whether it's aggravated and direct or it's a bit more passive, it's still abuse of some sort. So keep in mind that when these things happen, a child cannot unsee what they've seen. So it's important we keep it in mind so that we're able to notice, number one, and we're able to then help our children through it. All right, now I want to talk about privacy when it comes to privacy with parents, okay? And this is why I'm going to be sharing some series of why some children don't share what they're doing online or their online lives, why they're not sharing it with parents. Number one, as I mentioned briefly before, is that sometimes children feel that their parents just don't understand. So when children believe that their parents don't understand what happens online, they won't share things with you. So I really think it's so important that parents stop celebrating that you don't get the digital world. Every time you act like you're a dinosaur, I just don't get the digital world. You're building a wall with your children. You're building that wall that says you don't understand, you don't get it. And when children feel they have more information and knowledge than parents, it creates a power, you know, it shifts the balance of power. And it's very dangerous for a child to think they know more than parents, for a child to think they can make their own decisions and they don't need their parents. And that's happening more and more in the digital world. So please, parents, stop pretending that you cannot learn because you can learn. There's nothing you want to learn, you can't learn. So don't let your children think you don't understand. Upgrade yourself, update, Google, be aware of what's trending. All right, so that's number one. Parents don't understand, and so some children just don't share, they don't talk about their online life. The second one is that because you overreact. So can parents stop all the drama? Stop being a drama king or queen. Children are unlikely to share their online life with you if you're dramatic. Perhaps every time they tell you something online, something they've seen, something they've come across, something they've done, you overreact or you respond with unreasonable punishments. They're going to stay quiet and they won't tell you. Of course, we're not suggesting that you say anything goes, it's all right, whatever. No, no, no. You still want to ensure that you're the parent. However, you want to do it from a place where you don't overreact. Drop the drama. I always tell parents, just drop the drama. Listen, breathe deeply if you have to, go for a walk if you have to, go to the bathroom and scream like this if you have to. But when you're dealing with your child and they bring certain things with you or they share certain things with you, pay attention and be part of their online life so you know what is going on. Okay. Third one is you're not consistent. Let's sit on that a little bit. If you are not consistent, your children are they're going to be confused. Children need structure and consistency. So if you're always changing your rules and not clear on what you expect around screen time, family values, you leave them confused. And if a child is confused, they're going to tell you less than they need to, because they're going to say, what's the point? If today you say screen time, 10 hours is okay. Tomorrow you're suddenly shouting that 10 hours is not okay. You are not consistent. It leaves them confused. So children want to know that they have a rough idea what their parents stand for. And the children who know what their parents stand for, what's accepted, what's not accepted, they might not like it, but at least they know where you're coming from. So try and be consistent, please. Okay. And then the fourth one is harsh parenting style. If your parenting style is overly harsh and authoritarian, your child is more likely to retreat from you. And the online world offers an alternative which can be dangerous if unsupervised. So you want to make sure that you're not so harsh that your child retreats from you and runs away from you and doesn't tell you anything. And then they take all of that time and communication and discussing and opening up that they should be having with you. They move it online because the online world is waiting. There's nothing in this world you Google, you won't find a support group for. You have to be very careful that you don't relinquish your parenting role and you give it to somebody else to do for you. Who does not have your child's best interest at heart online? The fifth reason why some children don't share their online life with parents is just that they are seeking validation. And as children get older, acceptance from peers can be much more important than parental validation. So if they are getting this parental validation online, if they're getting validation online, they might be drawn into the online world even more. And you want to make sure that you talk to them about what matters to them. Because if your child needs validation, every human being needs validation. So when validation, sorry, not valuation. So if there's a gap and they're not getting what they need from their parents are not filling their emotional tank, they're going to go and look for it elsewhere. So let's remember that nothing can happen as a void. There can be voids. You will always be filled by something. So your needs, your emotional tank, your desires, it has to be filled by something. And if the right people who you trust, who should have have your best interest at heart, are not providing that validation, many times it's going to be found elsewhere. So please spend time really understanding what your child's love language is. If you haven't taken that quiz yet, remember it's a resource we have for you to figure out your parenting style and to figure out your child's love language. So you make sure that if your child's love language, for example, is words of affirmation, make sure you're saying words that affirm them. Don't leave them to go and be looking for that from their peers or online. All right, so that's one reason as well to why children go online more. And lastly, it's around shame and addiction. For some children, they feel shame from getting caught up in the wrong things online or addiction to perhaps certain types of content, and that can keep them away from you. So pay attention to their moods, to changes in their body language. Because if a child feels shame or is addicted to something that they shouldn't be, maybe they can't stop consuming. Unfortunately, this happens. So I'm going to say it here. Maybe a child stumbles on porn and starts watching it and they get addicted to that. They feel shame. And when they feel shame, they retreat, they hide, and yet they do it more and more and more. So you want to pay attention to child's changes, to your child and changes in their moods. How do they behave when they get offline? Are they agitated? Do they feel withdrawn? Are they always cagey when you come up and quickly shutting their devices? You want to pay attention to those. But remember, because you are dropping the drama, you don't have to react in a dramatic way. You can strategize and think, all right, I'm noticing something here. And then think through what am I going to do? But never just react like that, because the more you do like that, the more the children are going to retreat even more. The children today are very, very smart and they know how to circumvent so many things. That's a conversation for another day. So please make sure that you keep this in mind and you pay attention to some of these things. Because if a child has this is some of the reason why they keep their online life away from you. Because otherwise, your child will be able to tell you the things they're watching online, what they're enjoying online. Hey, maybe they like a particular YouTuber, or they like football and they're watching Messi or whoever it is that's playing. I'm not really a footy, but you get the idea. You want to make sure that they're talking to you and you are available, so you know what they like, who they like online, and you spend some time doing it with them. So you take yourself away from just your physical world and go and visit their online world every now and then, so you know exactly what's going on in that space. All right. And I want to just talk again about family digital well-being. We've talked about some of the reasons children keep their online lives away from you and they keep their life online private from you. But you want to think about, family digital well-being plan is critical. Most parents will, when you think about raising your child, you want to make sure they go to the right school, they have a house, they're dressed, they have clothes. You give them a balanced diet. They will eat a little bit of everything: vegetables, fruits, um, carbohydrates, protein. You make sure you give them good food, balanced diet. But think of the online world as a digital diet. And so every family needs to have a digital well-being plan that works for your family. Children need to learn how to make the right choices and to use digital for good. They need to feel that you are a safe place to talk about anything. These are some of the things your children need. They need to know that you realize that digital is part of their life. It's not either or, it's not all or nothing. It is how you consume it. It is what you are watching. Just as there's junk food, there's junk online content. If you spend all your time on junk online content, where is the space to use it for good? So that's really where parenting comes in. Your family needs to have a digital well-being plan. How long are you online? When do you get off? What are screen times? What are expectations when you're online? How can you use it for good? As a family, are you using it for good? Maybe you're subscribed to Netflix and Disney Plus and Amazon Prime. Do you spend any time together going to maybe National Geographic, for example, and seeing what's happening in nature? You can, you get the idea. Use it together for good as a family and make it fun. And if your children like TikTok, let them show you their TikTok favorites, right? Be part of their digital world. It's when you are not and you make a divide, they're going to do it without you. But yet they need you to guide them there. And I particularly like using examples my children understand. So if, for example, the other time when my son started coming down a bit late in the morning, and if I found out I was because he would spend a few minutes in the morning just chatting with friends on his phone. And I said, it's like when you're getting ready for school, imagine if your cousin, I mentioned a young cousin he has, and I said, imagine when you're trying to get this cousin ready for school in the morning, you find out that he's saying he's coming and he wants to go and spend some time on the playground in the park to play with his friends before he gets ready to go to school. I was like, huh. So you have to make it practical for them. Use examples that can help them see that even in this physical realm, let's remind them that the common sense in the physical still applies in the virtual online world. Fantastic. Now let's watch this quickly. Sorry, that just started playing quicker than I expected. I want us to quickly watch this. It's about detoxing your feed. It's done by Dove, so obviously they're selling their products. But I thought it had a really good message in there about self-esteem and detoxing your feed and what it means. So I'm going to start it now.
In partnership with leading self-esteem expert Dr. Philippa Diedrichs, the Dove Self-Esteem Project presents a 4-step guide in talking to your kids about toxic social media advice. This advice can be found in many social media formats, such as images, videos, articles, and ads. It can harm girls' self-esteem if it encourages unrealistic or narrowly defined beauty standards and suggests that achieving the perfect appearance is key to self-worth. Today, 1 in 2 girls say idealized beauty content on social media is damaging to their self-esteem, and 7 in 10 girls felt better after unfollowing it. The following are just 3 examples of harmful advice to look out for. Fitspiration content implies that an ideal body can be achieved by following a diet, exercise program, or product. It places greater emphasis on how the body looks instead of what it can do and how it feels. Thinspiration content often shows images of extremely thin bodies or shares quotes discouraging eating. Other content can even normalize or minimize the potential dangers of elective cosmetic procedures. Exposure to this can increase the likelihood of young people wanting to undergo these expensive and often unregulated operations. And while the impact of this will depend on several factors, such as the child's sensitivity, personality, and their skills to analyze media messages, over time, repeated exposure to this type of idealized imagery can be damaging to young people's body confidence and self-esteem. To help young people define beauty on their own terms, we need to equip them with the tools to identify this type of advice. Here's your 4-step guide to help detox your child's feed. Step 1, prep. 80% of girls would like for their parents to talk to them about how to manage idealized beauty content, and young people whose parents show an interest in their social media feeds are more likely to understand the intentions behind this advice. Spend some time on popular platforms. Familiarize yourself with settings and built-in safety functions. Follow the accounts your child engages with most and discuss with them which types of accounts, videos, and influencers they like and why. Step 2, chat. Discuss idealized beauty content by finding some examples with your child. For example, search for #beautyhack on TikTok or Instagram. Ask your child what they think the impact of following or engaging with all this advice could have on young people's ideas about beauty and self-esteem over time. And remind them that many social posts are paid advertisements and are sometimes not authentic advice. Step 3, detox. Spend 10 minutes together scrolling through your social media feeds. Show them how to hide, unfollow, or click not interested on accounts that make them feel bad. If they feel good not seeing these posts for a week, encourage them to unfollow those accounts and remind them that the with authentic accounts that inspire and promote a positive experience of beauty. Step 4, repeat. To encourage new habits, speak to other parents, mentors, and guardians to discuss ways to help. For example, encouraging young people to set reminders to do a feed tune-up every few weeks to unfollow accounts that may be damaging to their self-esteem. Authentic, real content created by friends, family, influencers, or brands that is unfiltered, positive, and neutral in attitude toward appearance can boost young people's mood and confidence. For more guidance on the movement to help detox your feed, go to dove.com/detoxify to download the Confidence Kit. Join us to help build self-esteem and body confidence in 250 million young people all over the world. Let's change beauty.
Fantastic. I hope you enjoyed that. And what were a few things you took away from that video? I thought it was very important that parents spend some time understanding their children's habits online, who they follow, who they like, what accounts they engage with, so you can have the relevant conversations with them. Because if you don't know, how do you guide them, right? So thank you for watching that and sharing your comments in terms of what are some of the things you are going to do differently. How are you going to spend some time with your children? And I like what they said at the end, which was repeat. It's not a one-time conversation. You don't say, I've talked to my child about it when I give them the phone last year when they turned 13. And now your child is 14 and a half, and maybe a year has gone and you haven't had any follow-up conversations. What are you doing? What are you following? Yes, we know parenting is hard. We know there's so many things you're dealing with. We know there's so many areas that you're trying to be on top of. But because of how important the digital life is and digital reality is, we can't afford to say because we spoke to them last year or 6 months ago, they should know. Should is not a strategy. You have to keep conversing, keep talking, keep reminding them. Don't be a nag, but keep reminding them in a way that they see that, what, I have to continue staying on top of this. Fantastic. Now, I want to talk about online content rules, and we've talked about so many things, what they shouldn't do, but nobody can learn what they should not do. What they need to learn instead is what should they be doing. So one of the things that you can do when it comes to online content rules and setting it is you want to talk to them about what they should be doing, how they should be feeling, how they should consider what they share. So it's, in our brain, this is from a brain science, neurological perspective, you cannot learn what not to do. You can only learn what to do. And every time you say, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that, their brain actually latches on what is after they don't. So don't spend too much time online. They will spend lots of time online. Versus, you know what, I would like you to spend 2 hours a day online because I think there are other things you need to do, such as this. That's very different. Then they learn that, okay, I should be spending 2 hours online entertaining myself. Anything more than that is too much. But when you just say, don't spend too much time online, or you're always online, you spend too much time online, you haven't taught them anything. So when we're talking about online content rules, let's think about setting it. And I like this particular example of teach them the billboard rule for sharing content online. Ask them these 3 questions. Would they be happy seeing it on a billboard? So imagine you're driving down the Ikoyi Expressway, for example. Ask your child that, things you share online, would you be happy driving down when you're seeing it online on this billboard? They might tell you, oh, that's silly, mom, I would never do. So many people will see this. No. But then tell them, but when you're online, it's the same thing. A lot of people are seeing it. This can, example, open up conversations around what they're sharing, who they're sharing it with. Maybe is their account private? Is it public? Even if their social media account is private, it doesn't mean that the people that are seeing it are still not sharing it. So unless they are comfortable that what I put on this billboard, anybody can see it, they should not share it. Then ask them, what does it say about them? Everything your child shares online, tell them it's saying something about them. And they want to control that narrative. They want to be the ones in charge of what they're putting out there about themselves. So ask them, the things you're sharing, what does it say about you? Think about it. If somebody doesn't know you, somebody has no clue who you are, the things they see about you online, what does it say about you? What impression are you forming about them when you see people? So imagine what you are sharing. What impression do you think it's making of you? Let's help our children understand that what you share is telling people something about you. So make sure you control that. And then lastly, ask them to think, what I'm sharing, is it necessary? Why am I sharing this? Is it actually necessary? I like to tell children, my children, and when I train a lot of children, pause before you post. That ability to just pause and think, why am I sharing, with who, and how is it going to affect me, makes all the difference. And you might still share some inappropriate things. That's the truth. You might still make some mistakes, but it will reduce that ability to just get into rabbit hole mode. You're not thinking, you're tired, you are suffering from the disinhibition effect, which means that people behave very differently online than they would in person. And people do things online that they really wouldn't do in person or face to face. So realize that our screen lives, we're actually different than how we were in real life. So with that in mind, you don't want a child at 12 or 13 or 14 making some lifelong decisions that will affect them long term, because right now they shared information they shouldn't have shared. They were not in the right frame of mind. They didn't have as much knowledge as they should. They're still growing. Children don't fully develop their thinking part of their brain till they're 25. When you think about all of that, you realize that the amount of power children have now to make some long-term decisions that could affect them long term, they're making it too early. And the parents around them, the adults around them, are the ones failing them. Because if we're not constantly on top of it, they are going to fall victim. Okay. So remember that the billboard rule for sharing content online, will they be happy seeing it on the billboard? Ask them that. What does it say about them? The content they're sharing, what does it say about them? And let them also think, is it necessary? Why am I sharing this at all? Okay. So we've spoken about it briefly, but this is digital footprints, part of raising digital citizens, part of the conversations we're having. They need to know what it means to be a citizen of a land. So, for example, if you're Nigerian, what makes you Nigerian? Your name, your culture, your passport. There are certain things that make you unquestionably Nigerian. Now, when it comes to digital citizenship, there's certain things you must realize. Your digital footprint is critical. What you say, what you share online stays online. So they need to understand that to be, you're a digital citizen by default of being born in the digital age. Yes, maybe you're online, you have a phone, you have a tablet, you have a laptop, you have some social media assets like social media, for example, different ones online. And then remember that everything you share online stays online in that citizen world. So what can you do about it if you need to protect them? Just the same way your child wouldn't get a passport and start traveling by themselves at 10 years old, it's the same way you as parents need to guide them. So one of the things you can do to protect your children, and when it comes to digital footprint, is thinking about parental software. YouTube, for example, has YouTube for kids. You can use that for young children. What I found is once your children get to about maybe even 6, they start to say, I want the real YouTube. So they know there's a real YouTube, and this YouTube for kids is only for some time. So even when they're using the main YouTube, you can do certain things like, avoid the YouTube videos just playing and looping, because that's part of where the children just get stuck in that watching for hours on end, is when video just plays after each other. Turn that off so that when a video that they're watching ends, the person watching needs to make the decision on what they want to do next. And that makes a huge difference. So if video ends, the child can decide, am I watching another one? Do I want to watch something else? But that ability to pause, click on the next thing is very different than just the next one plays, the next one plays. The next thing you spend 3 hours watching Paw Patrol, for example. Now, Google Safe Search is another thing you should consider putting on. Every parent should put this on their children's devices. Literally it's in Google. When you're searching for things, you can turn on Google Safe Search, which means that the results you will get will actually be safer. It'll be filtered out to be safer and cleaner content. Of course, nothing is perfect, but it is better. It will stream out some things that will not come up as a search result when your child is searching certain things online. And sometimes you want to make sure you put this on even on your own devices. It's not your children's device, yes, but your children probably use your phone, your laptop quite a lot. So if you don't put some of these controls in on your devices and your children get it, you don't know what they'll stumble on. So yes, I know you're the adults and you're thinking, why should I now start putting all this safe search on my devices? But if you know that your children can sometimes access your devices without you there, you want to put that in place. Okay, then Studio is another one that I use. It's a parental software that you pay for, and you can put it on up to 5 different devices. And it lets you do things like set screen time, block certain content. So you can block mature content, you can block gambling, you can block certain things, you can block certain websites. You can also put times around specific websites. And apps like Roblox, for example, you can say they can only do 30 minutes or they can't do it between this time and that time. So put some, scaffolding, put some guides around it because your children are still developing and growing. They don't know everything. No matter how savvy they think, they're still a child. They need you to guide them. So these are what some of these scaffoldings and putting these rules in place does. And I always say that, rules without relationship leads to rebellion. So make sure you're having the conversations with your children. Make sure you're discussing with them so that they know exactly where you're coming from and they understand why you're putting these rules in place. It's not because you don't trust them, but it's just because as a parent, you have to guide them. They're still learning. And the world out there, it's everybody out there is not innocent and everybody out there doesn't have their best interest at heart. So that's why you're taking it because you love them, you want to protect them, and you want to reduce the chances of them making some decisions, sharing things or seeing things online that they shouldn't. Most children are going to respond positively to a parent who's loving and shares where they're coming from and shares that their heart is from a heart of love, not just because I want to be a monitoring spirit. Okay. And then lastly, if your children are on social media, please let them have private social media accounts. A lot of, I think a lot of social media platforms are set by default, maybe to be public. So a child or a user has to go and set it to be private. So help them go through all your settings, make sure it's private, make sure they're private accounts. So it's also like they have to approve for somebody to follow them. And it has to be somebody they know. So it's not just to be private and anybody who requests to follow you say yes, then there's no point. It's to be private and then to think through who you are allowed to follow you. Okay, so remember the video we watched a little bit earlier from Dove about detoxing your feed? You want to do this regularly with your children. In fact, going through this now with you reminds me that I haven't done it in a while with my children. There was a time that when my child initially got onto Snapchat, I used, or was it TikTok? I think it was TikTok, sorry. I asked them, like, everybody you're following, you have to be able to know them one by one. If you don't know them, why are you following them? I haven't done it in a while. I'm going to go and pull it up now and ask her to tell me the people she's following. Okay, now talk about digital well-being. And that is the why are you sharing, who are you sharing with, and how is it affecting you or them? Because when your children are able to think through this, their digital well-being is then more positive. But if they're not thinking through and they're just sharing whatever, they're not thinking about the quality of content that they're watching, it can affect their well-being if they're constantly seeing negative comments, negative pictures, people that have enhanced their bodies and filtered themselves so much that the child is looking and comparing themselves to somebody's fake feed. And they're saying, why don't I look as good as that? But you're comparing yourself to somebody's fake feed. They've used filters to filter everything. And so you think they look so perfect from the reality. But for you to have a child and your brain seeing certain type of content, you're not able to necessarily immediately think, how do I know that they haven't filtered it? Most people, when they look at it, they start to compare themselves and think, oh, I don't look like that. So isn't that my friend that I went to school with? How come you start to compare? So you want to teach your children about that, about the quality of what they're seeing, who are they following, what content are they liking, and the more content that they look at, the kind of things that they see and share and comment on, the algorithms will be pushing more of that to them. So let them know that no app they're using is thinking that this is a child. They don't even know you're a child. In fact, for a lot of children on apps, they've lied to be on there. They're not the right age. So it's not the app's job to know that this person using this account is actually 10. And so they shouldn't be seeing pictures of Fitspiration of somebody who's talking about losing weight at all costs. They don't know that. So this is where mood checking comes in. Is your child suffering from FOMO? fear of missing out. It's part of this FOMO that makes some children share sexually generated content because they don't want to miss out. Maybe they're playing truth and dare, or they're saying you're just boring, you never share anything. You know, that whole kind of, hey, I'm the only one not doing it. And the people who are trying to get you to share content you shouldn't are going to make you feel that you're the only one not sharing. It's not true. So that resilience that we talk about, our children need it in this digital world. They need it in this onslaught of content that they're constantly seeing online. So think about the mood, pay attention to it. Is your child one that comes off social media and is wanting everything they don't have because they're comparing themselves? Then also look at their mental health. A lot of children now are actually self-diagnosing mental health challenges because people online, everybody's talking about mental health. Everybody's a mental health specialist now because a lot of people are speaking out. Because you're speaking out about it doesn't mean you're the expert on mental health. So a lot of, in fact, I think this is something I came across, that a lot of doctors are amazed at how many teenagers are coming in and telling them that they've self-diagnosed, they have a mental health challenge. And where have they learned the language from? TikTok. So we have to be really careful about what our children are seeing and how it's affecting their digital well-being. Now, talking about smart goals. Smart goals, smart goals. I love smart goals. I use it in everything in life. Now, when it comes to your digital well-being and all of that and screen time, you know, when you're talking to your children about what they're doing online, you want to make sure it's smart. So ask them questions like, why are you getting on? You know, how long are you going to be spending online? You've set some rules by this time. So maybe you decide that during the week your child has 1 hour of, entertainment screen time. You want to tell them that, you know, why are you getting on now to just entertain yourself? Okay, you have 1 hour to spend. Right? Make sure it's attainable, because the truth is that being online is actually addictive. So if you don't put these rules in place in a way that's attainable, so let's say, for example, you say you're going to be online 1 hour. Who's measuring that 1 hour? Are you putting a timer in? Are you going to put a timer on their clock so that they know when the 1 hour goes off? Or are you going to just tell them and hope that they remember? It's not going to work. You know, social media, digital media, they're made to be addictive. So unless you're very specific and you're very intentional, when you make a goal, if you're not sure that it's attainable, it's not going to work. And then it's almost as if you're just talking to talk. And then lastly, is it realistic? I say that because if, for example, you can't give the same rules to a 5-year-old as you will a 17-year-old, for example. So be realistic. Don't say that you're giving the same screen time to everybody in the house where you have a 5-year-old and you have a 17-year-old. It's not realistic. The 17-year-old will probably naturally spend more time online. So be realistic. Make sure that after they've done all the things that matter, they also need to relax. And the truth is that being online is also relaxing. It's just that it has to be done in a way that's positive. And it has to be done in a way that the child is not sharing content they shouldn't be sharing. Now, make sure it's time bound. So why I put this here is I noticed that for a lot of people during the lockdown and during the pandemic, people's rules were different. So because children were home, they couldn't go to school, a lot of parents relaxed because, man, you had to prioritize what was more important. Your child's mental health, they were away from friends, they were not going to school, they were at home. It was really tough. And so we thank God in that case for video calling and social media, because children could stay in touch with their friends. But what it meant was that for a lot of people, when we got back to normal time, the rules hadn't changed. So you want to make sure that your goals are time bound, they're specific, that they're tied to time. So what I mean by that is, are your rules, have you changed your rules now that life has gone back to normal? It's no more lockdown time, so the rules should be different. Child who maybe didn't have phones before till weekend, maybe now you've left the phones with them. Should you? I'm not saying take it back, but ask questions. Also, maybe you want to have different rules during the week than during the weekend. Okay, and of course, never leave your devices with the children in their room overnight. Because if it's with them overnight, they are going to use it during the night. Okay, so that's just a picture to go with the smart guide. And here are just some resources for parents as we continue to talk about what was the main topic today. Was really around online sexual abuse, and saying that a lot of children are sharing content they shouldn't, they're saying content they shouldn't. We've talked about the motivations for it. Some children share it for several reasons. Some share because they want to, some are coerced to do it. Some are doing it because they feel pressure. There's so many reasons why they do it. Some feel that everybody's sharing photos, so me too, I must do it. But you want to, as a parent and carer, you want to understand why they share nudes. You want to talk to your child. You want to know, as a parent, when should you be worried? right? Like, when should you be worried? Are you noticing changes in your child? Trust your instincts. And then you want to know where to get help. So, for example, thinkyouKnow.co.uk is fantastic for help when it comes to maybe you realize that your child has shared something they shouldn't and you need more help. It's a good resource because it helps you with what you can do. So, if a child is under 18 and has shared content online, whether they created it because fully knowing what they were doing or it was shared without their consent, so far they're under 18 and they can ascertain that there's a process to go through reporting that your nudes are out there and you want to take it down. Of course, we don't know that it's 100% perfect. We don't know that it was scrubbed from everywhere, but at least it's much better than not doing anything. And rather than it being on a million sites, maybe it will be on 500,000 sites. You get the idea. It will reduce it. So there's always help. And remember that if at any time you're confused and you need help, please get in touch with us at Lagos Moms. There'll be somebody that's willing and able to help you. Okay, and these are just some additional resources. You're going to get this file, so you'll be able to click on all of this. But Childline has a free app called Zip It for young people that helps them to report underage photos. This is another link as well on childline.org.uk that it gives you advice on how to remove nudes online. And then there's a guide for parents as well, just understanding more around children's motivation, why they share, what the trends are. The good thing about this space is that it's so new and it's so dynamic that there's always research coming out, there's always updates coming out. People are always there. There's some bodies that are committed to sharing research and trends and insights about this time, this digital age, and what it means for all of us. So please take some time to constantly be plugged in. And this is just who I am. This is how you can get in touch with me. My email is yetty@lagosmoms.com, and that's my WhatsApp phone number. So please feel free to reach me. In terms of social media, you can find us on Instagram at Lagos Moms, Twitter, Facebook, all at Lagos Moms. And my personal Instagram is at Yetty Williams. So if you have any questions at any time, you can get in touch with me. So we're done for today, and we're now going to take questions and answers. And as I mentioned, this is going to be available for replay, so you can watch it again and again and again. And that's part of the benefit of being in the digital club, is that you can replay these videos. It's a lot of content we share per masterclass, but at least you're equipped and you know one or two things you can take away to do differently. And always come back and listen to it again, because it reminds you that you're not alone, number one, and these things are happening and we need to keep talking about it. So until next time, thank you again for joining today. Bye-bye, everyone.